Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 5:30 News on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us this Monday. I'm Jeanelle Slade. Well, if you've been counting down the days to leave your home and take in dinner at your favorite restaurant, then today is a good day. Starting today, under Montana's Phase 1 reopening plan, restaurants, bars, casinos, and breweries can open their doors for dine-in service, but under some strict guidelines. Those guidelines include a plan for sanitation and social distancing. Well, this afternoon, locals had the first opportunity in weeks to grab a bite to eat in person at their favorite spot. Q2's Mitch Laggy checked in downtown to see how lunch service panned out and what's expected for dinner.
After only offering takeout and delivery for weeks, the first dine-in lunch service at Stacked in Billings today went off without a hitch.
You know, first day of lunch service went way better than I thought it would. I didn't know what to expect. You know, people have been coming in throughout lunch. Of course, it's a little sparse.
HINDMAN said he thinks that people's habits have changed, and it may take some folks a while before they come to his restaurant again. But he's optimistic about Monday night's dinner service.
We're ready to get back to business. I already have people calling in for reservations, so we're looking forward to find out what tonight brings and the rest of the week, and try not to gauge the rest of the financial year on Monday morning, first day out.
Down the block at Walker's Grill, executive chef Nick Steen said there's been an overall trend of takeout orders decreasing in the past few weeks. He said the team is excited to serve customers in person at a dinner service Monday night.
Now, after the last 6 weeks of being, kind of in limbo and not knowing what's going to happen or what's going to, what day to day it's going to be like, we're looking forward to just getting back to work, putting our boots to the ground and taking care of people. That's all we want to do is just take care of people right now.
Some Billings restaurants have opted not to open, instead continuing takeout service. The owner of Lilac Restaurant said that it's just not financially feasible for him to cut the number of customers in the dining room in half, restock the shelves with food, and pay for his staff on an uncertain night of business.
We can't, even if it was really busy with half the dining room available, that's still not enough to even come close to what I would require to keep people employed.
Until things change, Ingebrigtsen said that Lilac will continue offering takeout. Staff at all three restaurants thanked the Billings community for its continued support during the COVID-19 pandemic. In Billings, Mitch Laggy, MTN News.
Thanks, Mitch. Now, Mitch says Stacked was able to hire back most of its employees. Walker's unfortunately had to lay some employees off, and Lilac is operating with only 2 employees as opposed to 10 at the restaurant. Well, a Billings church service interrupted with disturbing images forces a congregation to enlist authorities and pushes a change in the way pastors present during this pandemic. Q2's Russ Riesinger reached out to the pastor at First Congregational Church in downtown Billings today and is standing by in our newsroom now with details on this disturbing act. Russ.
Well, many of you are probably now familiar with the video conferencing app known as Zoom. It's become quite popular during this pandemic with people not able to meet in person. It has also unfortunately become popular with hackers, something known as Zoom bombing.
Well, obviously we watched in horror, as our statement said, as we realized that the Zoom service was overtaken by someone. And so our reaction was just really shock and horror.
Like many churches, Billings First Congregational has been delivering services in a different way, going to an online format during the pandemic. Co-pastor Lisa Harmon says about 75 members were watching yesterday on Zoom when the meeting was suddenly hijacked by someone who then displayed graphic pictures of a child being abused. Now, it's not clear how the hacker got in, but most often they do so by finding a public invitation that's posted online. Church officials ended the virtual service as soon as they became aware of the problem and immediately notified the police and the FBI.
Absolutely. We're grieving and suffering for those victimized, for those affected, for the whole of our congregation, and offering resources and counseling for our congregation and those affected. And then, of course, we are just really committed to walking and working through our outrage as we work with courage towards healing and justice.
In a statement, the church said it takes full responsibility for not setting protocols that would have provided a barrier for this kind of thing to happen, and that they will take all measures possible in the future to make sure that it doesn't happen again. Jeanelle?
Russ Riesinger live in the Q2 newsroom. Thank you. As more and more Montana churches and businesses reopen, gyms across the state are forced to wait. Owner of Yellowstone Fitness, Don Christensen, says his gym has incorporated plexiglass barriers at the front desk, upped sanitation measures, and has spaced exercise machines so his employees are ready when they hear that okay. He says gyms aid in keeping people mentally and physically healthy, and from the messages he gets every day, it's clear people need and miss their workouts.
People just, when they do healthy stuff, feel healthier, they are healthier, and they don't seem to get every sickness that comes along. And it's just a healthy lifestyle. And this now more than ever, people need this, and people know it and miss it. And really, people want to get back in here because this is what keeps them mentally healthy and physically.
And Christensen tells us he's part of the petition started by Billings CrossFit that has now spread throughout the entire state to get gyms reopened as soon as possible. Well, a Bozeman nurse is not only fighting on the front lines of the coronavirus, she's doing so in the country's hardest hit state. Tonight, MTN's Gabby Crevitt has her story.
A nurse from Bozeman Health takes a leave of absence and experiences the devastation that is COVID-19.
They don't have the resources. There's too many people down here. This spread way faster than they thought.
12-hour shifts for 21 days straight.
I was so nervous because, this is out of my comfort zone. They told you that, you can tell them what your specialty is, but they're going to put you where you're needed. And there might be things that you're doing that you're not comfortable with, and you just need to do the best you can.
Munter was assigned to the night shift at the Roosevelt Island Medical Center in Queens, working with COVID-19 patients. She says personal protective equipment is low.
Those N95s are made to be worn one time. Same with these gowns are made to be one time. And here, you have to wear an N95 mask for 6 days before they'll give you a new one. I had some patients that were COVID negative and a couple that were positive. And so you're going into a room with a gown that you've been into a positive room with into a negative room. And that's just never the way you've been taught.
Resources compared to larger hospitals in New York City are limited at Munter's hospital, and she says the possibility of transferring patients can be impossible.
So I had a patient that I noticed that was really deteriorating and, really having a hard time breathing. And in the end, he ended up dying. And it's heartbreaking because the resources aren't here and they don't transfer the patient if there's not room for them.
And COVID-related deaths have become a harsh reality for Munter.
There is a refrigerated 18-wheeler truck at the back of our hospital, and there wasn't even enough body bags.
Munter says she worries about the mental health of recovering patients as well.
They're just really, going downhill because of the depression and the isolation, and you feel bad because you're like you and the day nurse are the only ones that they really have contact with.
Munter is near the end of her 21-day shift and has no regrets.
I feel, kind of makes me get teared up, but I feel accomplished that I had the courage to come here and help in some way. I feel like I've made a small difference, even though it's definitely not over here.
In Bozeman, Gabby Crevitt, MTN News.
Thanks, Gabby. Now, Munter says things are starting to look a little better in New York from when she arrived weeks ago, and she is excited to head home. Well, state health authorities report 2 new confirmed COVID-19 cases, one here in Yellowstone County. That case involves a man in his 20s. Now, the other case out of Cascade County is a man in his 40s. The number of reported deaths related to coronavirus stands at 16 in Montana. The state says 404 people have recovered and 6 are currently in the hospital. A new poll from Montana State University shows a strong majority of Montanans support the stay-at-home order issued by Governor Steve Bullock. But it also reveals an equally large majority worried about the economic fallout from the virus. The online poll conducted in mid to late April, released Monday, says almost 72% of Montanans strongly or somewhat supported Bullock's March 26th order. Only 11% opposed it, and 17% were neutral. On April 22nd, the Democratic governor announced a phased reopening of the state, including some non-essential businesses last week and restaurants and bars this week. While the poll shows support for Bullock's order, it also shows that 3/4 of Montanans are very or moderately worried about an economic depression in the wake of this pandemic. And almost 30% of Montanans say they've lost wages or personal income, and 20% say they've lost their job because of the outbreak. MSU political scientist David Parker says the poll indicates that these fears also translate into strong support for federal aid to help individuals and small businesses.
Certainly people are feeling the economic pinch, and that relates to the next piece. Overwhelmingly, people supporting these stimulus acts. They support payment to individuals, they support payment to businesses, again, across the political spectrum. And I think it's because people are feeling it.
Now, that poll surveyed 738 Montanans online. It has a plus or minus of 6%, the margin of error, and the full results can be found at KTVQ.com. Well, ahead on tonight's 5:30 News, Jay Cohn has more on the candidates hoping to grab a seat on the Montana Supreme Court. And in sports tonight, stick around because Scott has some memories to share with a few inductees to the summer's Montana Coaches Hall of Fame.
And coming up in weather, the severe storms from yesterday in eastern Montana have now moved out of the region, but we're looking at another storm in southern Canada. We'll tell you what that means for Billings coming up in just a few more minutes.
You're watching MTN News with Jeanelle Slade and Russ Riesinger, Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire, and sports with Scott Breen. This is the 5:30 News on Q2, Montana's news leader.